All right, this is Dr. Sutton with MDI Prep, and we are back for another episode of MDI Prep, What You Need to Know. Today we have in studio again Dr. Robert Gonzalez, well-renowned psychiatrist here in Houston, Texas, who's going to be sharing with us some more tips on how we can help our students overcome some of the things that may be keeping them from doing extremely well on their exams. So sit back, enjoy as we talk with Dr. Gonzalez. Yes. Dr. Gonzalez, welcome again to the MDI Prep Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Sutton. It's a pleasure always. Happy to help any way I can.
Well, I tell you what, today is a very interesting topic for us because this is something that really hits a lot of our students. And let me just start off. Let me listen to a little something.
ADHD is actually one of the most common child mental health issues. It, the estimates are anywhere from 6 to 10%, and sometimes you hear estimates that are even higher than that. I think the general rule of thumb is if you look in a typical public school, you're likely to find at least one child with ADHD in every single classroom.
Whoa. One child in every classroom. Now,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
So, the reason I wanted to talk to you about ADHD today is because I think, one, a lot of people don't know how to identify whether a child or and I say child, an adult has ADHD. A lot of times you hear ADHD, you think about kids, but a lot of people don't know that some people can be diagnosed with ADHD later in life. And so we wanted to talk to you today because we have some students who have come to us and said, Dr. Sutton, I can't focus. I can read something and I totally forget it, or I can't sit down long enough to study. So I wanted you to talk to our group today about a little bit about ADHD. And then also I would love to hear about, the medications, that people have, or the myths that people have regarding ADHD.
Absolutely. I think it's fortunate that I'm the one talking here today because I've my personal experience with ADHD, and probably the way it presented with myself is a very good example of how it'll get missed, or just one of multiple ways it'll get missed, growing up or as a child. So absolutely, number one, adults may have ADHD and not have been diagnosed before the age of 12, earlier on. Many reasons why that may happen. Lots of times you'll see patients in your clinic who were previously diagnosed as a kid, then for whatever reason, stop with treatment, and lots of times they struggle in finding a physician because a lot of physicians, for whatever reason, don't want to have to deal with the whole process of the testing or the possibility of testing, having this sort of proof on the record of ADHD. But quite honestly, it's a clinical diagnosis. So there's a huge struggle with treatment for adults. Bottom line is what I'm trying to say. So growing up, small rural town, South Texas, I recognized I had some issues with my classes, specifically with math, long division. My dad was a math teacher, so when he found out his son was having trouble in third grade with long division, he was upset. I didn't hear the end of it, and turns out, when I was relaying my story to our educational specialist in school, apparently that's a classic sign. With you have difficulty keeping track of the numbers that you're bringing down. So I was doing process correctly, but just struggling with the accuracy of things. So I always thought it was dyslexia. Small little town of 2,500 people. Nobody had even heard of ADHD or knew what that was. I just thought, it might be dyslexia. I'm switching numbers around here and there, and kind of that was the end of it. Now, despite me struggling a lot, I still did very well in school. Just because one might have ADHD does not mean, that they're not smart or intelligent. There's many famous people out there in the science community, like Einstein, for example, or even other learning issues that, have still been able to become accomplished in their field. So just because you've got ADHD wouldn't necessarily look at that as a limitation or sort of like a handicap. It's just different. once, I graduated number one in my high school. So once I got to medical school, I started having these issues, became a parent and listening to my attending physicians on rounds. And I was just watching them talk and I could see their mouth moving, open and closed, but I wasn't retaining anything at all they were telling me. So,
right.
I was fortunate that my teachers saw that it was super obvious. So they recommended me to go, see our education specialists, get tested. But again, me, little town, not a lot of people really knowing that ADHD is even a thing. And even in medical school, when talking about these sorts of things with our professors, learning about them, my ex-wife, who's a physician also, even physicians also don't really, some of them don't even believe it's an actual diagnosis. It's an actual, you're just being lazy, this and that. You can put some more effort or work hard.
Right.
But it's really, really easy for this to get missed growing up for multiple reasons. Maybe you might not have access to, the proper, tools needed to either, maybe a pediatrician might not diagnose it, but maybe a psychologist, is being asked for some input. And, those tests can get pretty expensive and not everyone can afford that. So as far as ADHD being missed throughout the childhood, absolutely. Okay. It happens a lot. And I'm thinking that may have a little to do with why the numbers for ADHD as far as prevalence are starting to get higher for the adult population more recently, because, now people are, have more access to physicians,
right.
Getting tested, and it's becoming more apparent. So yeah, that's a long answer short.
Wow. You know what? That makes me think of this question. So are there, and I don't know, are there levels to ADHD? Like, can you, and are there I guess like mild ADHD versus severe ADHD? Are there levels to this?
Yes, there are definitely levels. So basically, you would have either an individual who's very hyperactive and fidgets a lot. Those who can't sit still in their seats, and that's probably the most common you see with a lot of the school-age kids. And then, of course, the inattentive type, where me, classic example, difficulty sustaining that attention focus for very long, following along, or it could be a combination, of both kind of mix. But the severity of symptoms really does depend on each individual. And one thing that I'll never forget to this day, when I underwent that testing with our specialist, so we at our school, is probably the most rigorous testing that I've seen done out in the community, but our school required us to do 3 hours with the neuropsychologist and then 3 hours computerized testing, some degree, at least in some part, to make sure we're not feigning symptoms, because again, medical school want to make sure that those who are getting treatment truly, have the diagnosis and can prove that,
right.
with less uncertainty. Quite honestly, clinical diagnosis, you get a history of symptoms directly from your patient, also from either their spouse or their parent, et cetera. That should be many times enough to make that diagnosis. But I'll never forget, Mrs. Bass had mentioned to me that she was getting ready to retire, and the impact just kind of stung a little bit more. But she told me that I was the worst case she'd ever seen in her career, and I was able to make it through medical school and become a professor at MD Anderson for 10 years, faculty, and I'm still here, Dr. Sutton. So definitely severity, but it's not impossible to overcome the challenges.
Well, you know what, and speaking along those lines of severity, so let me ask you this, because there are a lot of myths out there about ADHD medications and drugs and things of sorts. And a lot of the students, I know that the students that are preparing for exams, and we've recommended them to go see, a psychiatrist, right, or see a professional. Mm-hmm. But they are afraid of the medication. They talk about the side effects and, am I going to be addicted to this? Can you just share for, just a little bit about maybe some of the medications and kind of maybe debunk some of those myths?
Absolutely. So with treatment for ADHD, the first line is going to be stimulant medication. So that's going to include Ritalin, methylphenidate, and all the different formulations, whether it's a long-acting, whether it's patches, or bottom line, it's going to be methylphenidate. The other major stimulant class medication you would have are the amphetamine medications. So whether it's amphetamine salts like Adderall, or if it's amphetamine sulfate, pretty much going to be a very similar formulation and preparation of the same thing. So those are the major two when it comes to first line. And again, extended release, immediate release. There's going to be a variation of that. Then the non-stimulant medications you would have are Strattera or atomoxetine. Off-label physicians will use stuff like bupropion. For kids, usually Intuniv, guanfacine. So you have a few options, but the tried and true, first line are going to be those stimulant medications. And I know a lot of people, probably the top two biggest fears or concerns about those medications are that, number one, am I going to have any horrible side effects? Is it going to give me a heart attack or a stroke? Is it going to make my blood pressure shoot through the roof or give me tachycardia? So while in theory, cardiovascular side effects are something you at least keep an eye on and monitor for with the medications, majority of people do not experience really significant change in these parameters. So lots of times someone who's, and they might already be struggling with anxiety before even, addressing the whole ADHD thing. So who knows if it's possibly, anxiety that's causing, all these things to go up with the medication. But bottom line, that is way, way oftentimes blown out of proportion. The second one is, and again, I'm not saying that it can't happen. That's why we follow along with blood pressure readings regularly, the time of visit. But typically it's not a concern or something that happens, I see with my patients, where we need to make any sort of drastic changes to the medication. I probably had to stop other medications like an SNRI or even Wellbutrin because of some blood pressure increases with a handful of patients I had in the past. But that's another story. So the other concern being, am I going to get addicted? Is this something I'm going to have to, take for the rest of my life? And honestly, if someone who's been, dealing with ADHD, who's actually going through regular treatment and getting, the help that they need for ADHD, those individuals over the long term are actually lower risk of developing substance use issues compared to those who've been diagnosed with ADHD and don't receive any sort of treatment for the ADHD. So that was something I learned that was kind of surprising, but just kind of goes to show that it's a little counterintuitive what most people expect. So while yes, we do always use caution, and the medication is potentially, habit forming, with correct use and, adhering to the prescription recommendations from your physician, all of those issues, the risk can be kept minimal so that they don't become a problem.
Wow, that is awesome. So you know what? The bottom line to my students, and I want to convey that to them, is that if you even suspect that you might have ADHD, they should seek a professional. And not only just any professional, I would say reach out to Dr. Robert Gonzalez. Dr. Gonzalez, can you tell them how they can contact you?
Absolutely. I think that if you heard Dr. Sutton's podcast on anxiety, one thing that I will say my patients have at least made it a point to bring it to my attention is that if I happen to share some of those stories about, not only knowing about the issues of anxiety and ADHD on the, textbook training level, but personally, with family and dealing with a lot of these sorts of things, especially the ADHD, it helps them feel more at ease. Like, there's other people that, deal with this. It's not them. They're not alone. There's help. And not only is there help, but, you can actually turn things around and do very well with the right help. So I am more than happy to help in any way that I can. And I will say, starting off, check out my website, Concordia Psychiatry, CONCORDIA, psychiatry.com. And then if you've got any questions, I'm happy to take some calls and chat with you for a bit, see if we can, if we need to, maybe get an evaluation scheduled. Feel free to give me a call, 713-894-7787. Again, 713-894-7787, concordiapsychiatry.com.
All right. Dr. Robert Gonzalez, again with us here at MDI Prep. We thank you, and we look forward to talking to you again.
My pleasure, Dr. Sutton. You guys are very welcome and happy to be here whenever you guys need.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.